Our next state, according to population, would be Michigan. Andy, Rob?
Good afternoon, everyone. As John stated, he kind of gave 4 themes on what the presentations are supposed to be about. And, I was trying to think of what would be the best way to come up with that presentation. So what I ended up doing was kind of stealing a presentation that I had given 2 weeks prior to the development side of my department. And basically it's, so as I commented earlier in the morning during the agency meeting, is that Michigan is very decentralized in the fact that the regions are the ones that develop our projects, our preservation projects. They come back to me, I have a subcommittee, we kind of give a thumbs up, thumbs down, whether or not we agree that it's the proper preservation project, or if there's something else that they should be looking at. So with that in mind, that's kind of the basis behind this particular presentation, that I was talking with the designers, the developers, and that's why I went back to the basics on pavement preservation. So with that being said, I kind of felt a little greedy. Illinois is making the comment that, they're at $30 million for their pavement preservation budget. And I'm up here about to cry that for FY21, they're cutting pavement preservation from $164 million back down to the baseline of $89 million. Understanding that the definition of preservation is different for every organization, but ours kind of breaks down into 2 different categories. Surface seal, so that being your microsurface, your chip seals, crack seal, and then what we call functional enhancements. So that's with our agreement with FHWA, that's 1.5 mil in resurface, sometimes 2 inch, work along those lines. So I wanted to focus on, when I was discussing with the designers, how can we go back to the basics of pavement preservation? And so I took the time to start discussing some of our most effective tools in the toolbox, looking at HMA preservation. First one being crack sealing. I do believe, Larry, that's kind of how the CPM program got underway at Michigan DOT. And ever since then, we've tried to keep it alive, and because there truly is a benefit to it. You wouldn't think that there is something such a simple type of project, but it truly does pay dividends. So in Michigan, we kind of look at it a handful of different ways. We have it as a pre-treatment for a lot of our surface seal fixes. So if we've got a microsurface, a chip seal, the ultra thin bonded wearing course, what we call paver place, all these fixes, we require that there is actually a crack seal pre-treatment. Specifications dictate how soon that next treatment actually gets placed on it, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, so on and so forth. So crack treatment is definitely there as a pre-treatment. We do a lot of standalone crack treatment projects across the state. We tend to utilize an innovative contracting method, a fixed price variable scope. That way we can try to stretch those dollars as far as we can. And then something actually what we did for the first time this year. So one of the fixes that a lot of regions like to go to is a single course mill and resurface. In Michigan, unfortunately, we are plagued with way too many miles of composite pavements. So even on our single course, those reflective cracks are coming back through. Well, in Michigan, we have warranties that are in place that say, hey, we can't jump on this pavement for at least 2 years, 3 years. Well, you're leaving those cracks open for 2-3 years before we can get on there with the crack seal. So what we decided to do is we built it right into the contract to where here's our single course mill and resurface. Also, contractor at the time, we're going to leave that contract open until the next spring. If there's cracks that aren't included, that wouldn't be covered underneath the warranty specifications, let's get out, let's seal them now. That project was paved this spring, early summer. So I guess we'll come to find out this spring to see how many of those cracks actually reflected back through, to see how cost effective that particular method's actually going to be, and see if we want to move forward doing that. So some of the picture in the middle, it was kind of disheartening getting called out to that site. I got calls going, hey, we got some cars sliding around. You want to come out and take a look and see if you can help us figure out why? That was pretty easy. I mean, I kind of hope for some harder ones. Andy and I are always on the road all across Michigan. I think Andy was someplace else when I got this call, so luckily he didn't have to endure that one. But some more on crack sealing, best practice. So I know ISA guidelines make the comment that, we want to try to crack seal when the cracks are the widest to be able to make that crack seal material the most effective. However, in Michigan, when we're at those widest cracks, we usually have some form of moisture, whether it's rain or the white stuff. So we do the best that we can. We end up crack sealing in the summer months. However, what I've been doing is trying to encourage our region offices to go out and review these sites early spring to put together the contract documents. The worst thing for them to do is to do it before the winter, because what we start running into is that a road that looked like it was a good crack seal candidate going into winter may not be the same case after the winter, depending upon the winters, the freeze thaws. So I've been trying to get them to kind of push that, and I know that kind of messes with the lettings a little bit, but I think our contractors are responding accordingly. To help provide them a tool, our designers a tool, I've been working with our industry groups on trying to develop this concept of crack density, on the amount of cracking that is present within 100 feet, and try to keep it nice and simple. Obviously, nobody wants to spend a lot of time sitting on the side of the road looking at crack seal projects. So the idea was you got 100 foot, 12 foot wide, what type of linear footage of cracking, so i.e. the crack seal material that's actually going to be down, makes sense to where, yes, it's a good crack seal candidate, it's a marginal, or we should really be looking at some type of other treatment, a surface seal treatment. Like I said, I'm in the process of working with our industry groups to kind of try to finalize that, and also try to put some pictures together with that so that our designers and construction staff can go out, kind of take a look and go, like on these fixed price variable scopes, maybe we skip this priority because it's too far gone and we're going to create a hazard for the traveling public. So more to come on the crack density as we move forward. Chip seals, by far one of the most cost-effective fixes that we have in our toolbox. Again, we were kind of looking at the use of chip seals. Typically, we see these on our rural routes. Northern Michigan, not a lot of traffic, pretty low risk, safe place to put them. However, we've been getting very good performance out of our chip seals, so I've been challenging regions to kind of try to start pushing that envelope a little bit. So the pictures that you see are of some small towns and villages. So our standard fix is kind of changed to a single chip with a fog seal. When you put that fog seal on it, it gives it a nice clean look to it, to where even in these small towns and villages, they've been very receptive to it. If you kind of get out in front of it and do a little bit of PR, explain to them what it is and what the final product's going to be, they seem very open and receptive to it. And so we've had a lot of good luck with it. The other thing that we're starting to push on is putting chip seals on freeways. I know Minnesota has had some luck with it in the past, and we would like to join that list. I don't know how many times I've heard, well, Minnesota puts them on freeways. Well, let's have Minnesota and Michigan in that same conversation. So next year we've got one flagged for I-75 in Sheboygan County. So that's north near the bridge. And then we're looking at one on US 31 down near the Indiana border. And so these higher volume routes, when we're talking higher volume, we're talking more around the 10,000, 11,000 ADT. I'm looking forward to those projects. I hope they're very successful, because then that'll allow me to continue to kind of try to push some regions to consider it, and again, stretch these dollars even further. But with chip seals come the Cape seals and other combinations that you can get out of them. So whether you're looking at a traditional Cape where you got the chip with the micro over top of it, we also have had regions kind of do that only with a fiber mat, put a micro over it, or doing the fiber mat and with a 1.5 inch asphalt overlay on it, so doing the Texas underseal. So there's a lot of good benefits from trying to combine some of these. Obviously, then you kind of start looking at the economics of the fixes and trying to figure out what is truly the best fix. We kind of go into some of these HMA surface seals. So Michigan, we're kind of trying to make a comeback. Again, we call it the pave replace surface seal. Everybody else tends to refer to it as the ultra thin bonded wearing course. I mean, we're seeing good performance out of them where we have them. They seem to be performing pretty good on our composite pavements, which is a plus. And what we've found, at least on one of our projects, that within that year 5 to 7 of them being down, they appear to take a chip seal pretty well, to where we can just kind of continue that PM cycle on that pavement. The other thing that we have out there is our HMA ultra-thin overlay. I think that is relatively close to what everybody refers to as a thin lay. It's a dense graded, fine graded HMA, standard HMA. And again, we're seeing pretty good performance out of those as well. A lot of different tools in the toolbox when it comes down to HMA preservation. However, we always seem to kind of fall short when we start talking about concrete preservation. And so that's what I really wanted to hit on with our designers, because again, we're really quick to let our concrete pavements go, which we have a fair amount of miles of those in Michigan. We let them go to where we're like, okay, we'll drop some money, we'll do some patches, and then we're going to put a 2-course overlay on them. And in my opinion, you're just kicking the can down the road, because now you just made a mess for yourself to clean up later. To where why not start getting on these pavements a lot earlier with the diamond grinding and grooving. Part of our pavement management data that we collect is the ride. Somewhere I think everybody does, seeing as how it's a federal. And we've been kind of trying to keep an eye on our concrete pavements. So when these IRIs start getting up around that 100, 110, 120 mark, here's a good opportunity to hop on them and get a grinding on there to kind of help that load transfer, continue to try to preserve that pavement. Depending upon aggregates, so on and so forth, you may need to add the grooving into it. Other thing that that I tend to see in our travels is in our concrete pavements, when we see joints and cracks like this happen in the panels, we never seem to set any type of capital outlay project up for it. We always just leave it for maintenance. And so you get the classic, okay, I'm going to go in and throw coal patch in it, or we're going to hit it with spray patch, AMZ. And that kind of really bothers me, just because I feel like we could be doing things better. Again, I challenge the regions to consider these projects for crack sealing, joint sealing, and utilize some of the new products that are out there. Whether Michigan, we've had a lot of good luck with mastics, even on concrete pavements, on trying to seal up some of these larger cracks that are traditional crack seal material. It's outside of that specification for the crack width and so on and so forth. So again, there's a lot more we can be doing with our concrete pavements. And that kind of dovetails into the soapbox that I've been standing on in Michigan now for the last couple of years, and to use Phil's word, the champion of, with a lot of support and help from others, is under drain cleanout. I mean, we all know that water is the enemy to our pavements, and one of the things that we tend to neglect the most are our under drains. We spend millions of dollars on the investment of the under drains, especially on our concrete pavements. We install these outlets, and then we never do anything with them. You see version 3.0 of the specification. I've kind of had to write and rewrite based upon some comments. So I'm up to version 3.0 of an under drain cleanout spec. In 2019 here, I've had at least 5, I think I may have had 6 contracts actually utilizing it. And I mean, the specification is good for preventive maintenance, and then also what we call our R&R, so our rehab and rehabilitation. It's a good tool that I think that's out there to kind of help address this, with the biggest obstacle being these outlet locations. I'm trying to find these, but we've been finding ways around that and helping out where we can. So it really comes down to it. On concrete pavements, what do we typically do? We cut it out, we patch it, but are we truly addressing what the issue is? I mean, a lot of times when you look at the distress in that pavement, we're cutting out that distress, but that patch isn't addressing what caused the distress. And a lot of times it tends to be water in that pavement section. So that's why if we can get into doing a better job at maintaining our under drain outlets, will be very helpful. The spot that I get stuck on is federal funds will allow me to clean out under drains. It's that borderline, is this a maintenance activity or is this a preventive maintenance activity? With my conversations with the feds, they consider it as a PM. What they don't consider as a PM activity is helping to clean out the ditches along the roadside. So I can't leverage federal dollars to do that. However, I was asking my regions to work with their maintenance forces to kind of help come in, and if we can coordinate work between maintenance on cleaning out the ditches, utilizing and leveraging the federal funds to clean out the under drains, it can be more effective on being able to remove some of that vegetation and actually get some of these things to have them operational the way that they need to be. And then a little bit of innovation in it too. There's some new products, I shouldn't say new products, there's some products that are out there that I'm looking to kind of try to utilize to kind of try to help, promote good drainage, roadside drainage. So the pictures here up in the top left corner is what you would see driving along the shoulder of an interstate. The little divot in the shoulder usually isn't painted green. We just had that one painted green because we knew this was going to be one of our test locations. So you see the cattails. Usually that's a strong sign that there's an outlet in there somewhere. The picture next to it is me standing in said cattails looking back. And you can see that that outlet is there, but buried fairly well. And so working with maintenance, we use this product called concrete cloth. And so what we ended up doing is kind of creating this nice pad, utilizing the concrete cloth to help protect and give that underdrain outlet a larger footprint, A, so it doesn't get buried by the ditch, and B, to keep that vegetation out of it. So far, it's been very successful, and hope to maybe utilize a product like this in the future in heavy vegetative areas. Underdrains are my soapbox, and trying to help promote good drainage and to preserve those concrete pavements. I guess I will open it up to any questions.
I'm curious, and this goes for John as well. I was just curious how far down your treatment options you go. You talked about your surface seal, your functional enhancements, your R&R. When do you, and I'm looking at it through a local agency perspective, so I don't know what the normal DOT thing is, but when do you start doing pavement design to see if that treatment is the right option?
When do you start looking at pavement design to figure out if a treatment's the right option? Is that more or less what the question was? Yeah. It's an interesting question. I mean, as I commented earlier, the regions send in their projects, candidate projects to us, to myself, and I have a subcommittee. I guess that's when we kind of take a look at the pavement history, and depending upon what it is, we kind of dig in a little bit further, I think, on the pavement design to see if that treatment is the appropriate treatment, or if there's something else that needs to be taken into consideration. I mean, I know we do that a lot we've got AASHTO pavements that have drainage, or more so on concrete when we're starting to look at some of the rehab, just because we got a couple different concrete sections that are out there, and different fixes work differently for those situations. I don't know if that really answers your question, but
I'm guessing local agencies won't have this ability, but we have a network-wide FWD testing program across the DOT, and we have one of our pavement people has gone through and actually done a rough estimate of needed structure on any pavement within the system, so that one of the things you can do is go to that sheet, and if you're thinking, or it's a map of the entire state, if we're thinking of saying, is this a good place for a preservation treatment, and there's a serious structural need there, then maybe you better rethink that. But that has been something that's kind of helped the districts as they've gone through that process.
Rob, I know you and Andy are working on ways to improve quality. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on type of things that you're doing for improving quality of the treatments?
I guess I'd say it's a little too early. I mean, I know we're looking at the quality control plan for our micros, just because we have a history there with debonding of our microsurfaces. But yeah, I think it's in the early stages yet. I commented earlier during our agency meeting that it seems to be a common thread that a lot of us are looking more for either some tests to verify what contractors are putting down, or actually are they meeting our specifications, and/or is there any type of QA that we could be doing at that time. So
add something to the first question, which was on selection and the design. We look at all of our pavement data collection information. Like Rob said, we get together with a group of people, and we're looking at ride quality, we're looking at rutting, we're looking at several different things when we make the selection. And we also bring the projects up to look at them kind of firsthand
myself or Andy or both of us are actually, I think it was 2 years ago when we're sitting in Traverse City, I think, Francis, you raised the question, because there was the comment on, the engineer in a box, the black box to spit out projects. Do people rely solely upon PMS data, or are we still putting physical eyes on the pavement? And we still put eyes on the pavement in Michigan. Each region does van tours. Andy and I try to get on as many of those as possible. So we at least have a little bit more firsthand knowledge of what those potential projects are. And then we can go back into the office and start digging into the pavement history and the pavement data a little bit more in depth when they officially submit that project. But thank you.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.